What?
It says Montgomery, Blair, LT. Hit Montgomery, Blair, LT, and doubles.
Oh, what's wrong?
Glenn.
Doesn't really matter.
We're not reading theory on it, but I just think that's what we'll say.
Like in our Discord?
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh, that's probably a mistake. Cause like you know how like sometimes the wiki like just puts you against yourself.
No.
See, this is a great one for rebuttal.
That happened twice.
A2
to us.
rebuttal.
What about you at first?
Second.
That's the weird thing you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
You guys are at? Oh, we're
Yeah.
at. Can you guys stop saying C dot, the OS? What was this font? What? It's not ethical. I dyslexic, bro.
It doesn't work.
No?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Wait,
worse.
do you have a preference for like
Yes.
what do you want?
Calibri.
Calibri, okay, I'll send that document to you.
Thank you. We're not gonna read theory on it. I think that's it.
I know, but I'm an inclusive and good.
Oh, well, W.
I sent the email chain, by the way.
Catastrophe! Exclamation mark.
Great.
What time are we supposed to start?
30.
Also, heads up, you can send docs if that's what you'll prefer, but for me, would you also send it in body?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll just send it.
Wait, we sent it off.
You send it off for us. Cause we like. share
I'll send
bodies
it in the
and-
body and have you docs.
Thanks.
Maybe we could copy the body and turn it off.
Send them like,
Do the flip it, bro.
like, I was.
Okay. I'll send the docs. Though. If you like it to start.
Wait, let me just check if I got your. Wait, can you guys label it gold font?
What?
Yeah.
Actually, our gold font.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Round
That's that.
two.
He thinks he's tough.
Oh.
So this is not.
That's not talking.
Okay, it's 3:30, we're good to go? Yeah, I sent the wrong round on it.
It's fine.
Imagine it said round 4.
It's okay. Okay. We imagine lots of things.
I like it. Seriously.
Yes.
No,
That
that was
was
me
the
being
gold.
silly.
Okay. It's sent. It's in the body and then there's a Word doc attached to it.
So inclusive.
I know, it's like a circus act. Don't worry, I'm good, I'm good.
Well, actually, it's like I don't. Oh wait, it says it's sent, but it's like stuck on the sending screen. So I don't know if it actually. Is.
Oh.
Just let me know if you guys get it.
Okay.
1 and 2.
Give me that. I just don't. Wait. Okay.
You guys saw document?
Yeah.
You need to download it?
No, I'm opening it.
No, okay, wait, okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Time starts. Now, disadvantage one is governance. Somaliland is lacking just legitimacy. Could 124 Somali nationals feel tension, showering instability, growing field reunification among minority clans in Somaliland. Afghans all has on when there were 5 clans, only one supports secession, other 80% of the territory do not. And at least are in control. Elder 21 Somaliland at least go to restricted authority. International legitimacy without internal legitimacy is uniquely bad. Burgundy of 20. International legitimacy to win domestic legitimacy generates the least insecurity where the state is deploying against opponents, creates rebellion when inferiority central government external military support. Independently Johnson 14. Independence agenda has a unifying effect which encourages pressure to democracy and catastrophe. Somalia 6. Turmoil at the domestic levels will over conflict between governments and dissidents are not contained by borders, launch military actions to seal their borders. Disadvantage to secession borders are respectable affirming by separatists in Jamaica 24. African states respect borders drawn, recognition that President Cuba, Somalia, Sudan supports secession moves, disabilize each other, perpetuate proxy governments, drawing in other actions, deal, legitimizes the AU, identify required. The EU policy of maintaining borders is primary recognition, legitimize other movements. Dex Club, Velasquez 14. Difficult to decide without strong UN and national governments no longer cope with pandemics, warning terror, microstates, emerging less capable, already is an illusion, except if you are a superpower, let the second world war is distinct. Pause 23. Somaliland, unique, Iridian, South Sudan share agreement from opposing parties. Somaliland doesn't go to nuclear finnick at 20. Horn of Africa leaves and arm trees, proliferate low barriers, nuclear violence like in the whole region. ANCOM 20 pandemic accelerating risk. International call puppet and wars escalating track housing involvement treaties, inspiring talks being done. Chance of the new high proxy wars extinguished. Solomon 22. Deadly points will be carried out. Winter 4 quarters of the global nuclear and action life on Earth. Disadvantage 3 is backlash. Somaliland's de-escalated. Moment 24 with Somaliland election underlying stability of lands. Relationship with Rogan D2 fighting as a restart of the risk remains recognition for Somalia. Did make a sound report. Somalia's reaction rooted in its perception of Somaliland slipping away, go to war to maintain sovereignty. Somalia's very stir clan divisions to destabilize Somaliland. Somalia and acceleration divisive and incompetent amnesty 24. Somalia used every means frame and six. Donald China intervenes to deny Taiwan relations as he doing. Trying to deliver large military aid to Somalia and telling to retaliate against Somalia, which established ties with Taiwan. Egypt will blockade Somaliland. Identity 24. I guess I know for Egypt probably blockade considers recognition. Egypt strongly advocates for preservation of borders, prolongation of Somalia's strict critical allied control over trade in the Suez, Somalia, again, create all paths to be able to rail, weakening Egypt's influence, blockade, disrupting international markets, trade, devastating stability, last most well. Empower Somalia, Paravention 24, Egypt delivering military aid to Somalia after Ethiopia deal with Somaliland, lash out on its conflict Bay 24, recognition increase war, Ethiopia perceives Egypt's precedent as a threat, increasing tensions disrupting our region for its borders, internally FDI drives instability, state 23, Somalia has limited aid due to lack of recognition, investments concerns profit, especially in Somaliland, conflicts arise due to lack of increasing inequality, investments contribute to India to unite and fight back, same background, and affirming sparks civil war, plan 22, opposition by many Somaliland leaders against recognition, these satisfying to aid to the government controlled by Aztec fears, able allies to dominate the other kinds, increasing anxiety, civil war, all things to people with AK's recognition, removes incentive for her internal peacemaking. 16. Let's term involvement in greater political space for the solutions, but leaders send no external political cover, local communities bring parties together. Clan wars spill over 2023, fighting between Somaliland clans, time dollar reach and global power to spell for research Somaliland and center of interest. The Spanish force deploy Africa's on the brink of conflict, throwing regional allies in Super 24, living war, Ethiopia's on Never with Somalia. Somalia sees this as a violation of territorial integrity, led to alignments with external powers, create discord. New Deal keeps conflict at base in 125. Countries agree to collaborate on aid stabilization negotiations and government breakthrough arrangements that Ethiopia ICC. It'll hold up all 24. Turkey's approach to addressing issues will extend the de-escalation period until mid-2025, and diplomacy is something Gaza 2024. Aid for progressing guidance, constitutionalism, increasingly a future civil society, growing young people taking on challenge, affirming next of 24. Independent Somalia, worse intentions. Somalia views the move as a direct challenge of close diplomatic costs. And collapses the AU 24 Ethiopian Somalia set ties to the president for others, encourage co-op actions, exacerbate tension, power pressure, align with one side creating divisions, the base delay the action during the AU Malua war, limit effect of 30 days after ratification, and some ratified others don't differ legal regimes to rise, outcome of debates not speed, AU solves conflict just on the way, AU mediation and our recent agreement mitigate conflict, and African solution or no other mediation, other region benefit from after inquiry, requires school, Malua 23. States must contend with implementation, coordination, of border ideological battle for AFTA. One country's investing below capital. AFTA will transform trade, solves war in 2020. Trade creates goodwill and economic incentive to avoid war. Protectionism promotes hostility, regionalism, and impact filters 10-15. Terror, automatic conflict. These econs over these interconnected issues can be dealt with by anyone. They respond require overcome this unit. AU is shaping global trends work together to innovate solutions. Otherwise, bioterrorists coming field related barriers of fire are going down. All workers over lab equipment drone use use for the spiritual extinction. 121 engineer pathogen span co-career evade counter reduce white self-reliant investment biotech reduce skill and funding needed.
Okay, are you good on like, are you your voice?
Oh, I should be good. Hopefully.
That's not feeling medication.
I should.
Okay, I just sent it. Did I send it? And if the email didn't work, let me know. I can just resend
What's the file?
docs.
Is it in the bottom as well?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You sent it in mine. Yes. But you already have it. You already have it.
Wait.
Oh, it's Hegel. It's safe, bro.
I'll publish.
Okay, I got prep. We got the prep.
Gonna read this.
Okay, I got it.
Cool.
Wait,
Anyone not right?
I don't have.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hide.
Wait, maybe, let me just check first.
Okay, I got it.
Feel free to.
Yeah.
Anyone not ready? I'm getting some my first word. We affirm contended one is framing. Truth is produced through the intersubjective recognition of one another to incorporate and correct error. Alternative frameworks are incoherent because they can't account for the possibility of their wrongness. A historical approach can be worthwhile while they refuse the process by which truth becomes meaningful. And that's up 13. Throughout the truth one needs to do well with the negative because explicitly the result cuts off space and logic, but the process where the knowledge is achieved is historical dimension to truth exclusively repeating alternative truth and the object are inexplicably implicated through experience. The recognition and correction of error. The process must take into account all positions of the consciousness, eventually constitutive of all encompassing truth. And only through collective institutions like the state can we create conditions for subjectivity, which is foundational to the work at the norms of ethical life. Wood 90. The participation in the state takes the form of rational thought and end in itself. Unification is the state's end and the individual's vocation to lead to universal life. Universal life of the state provides the subjective freedom and an individual always a product of social order. The political state, social life is known to will for rationality. The institution in which beings make a collective decision about the form of their life together. The state is dependent on nothing better and humans beings unite for great ends. The relation of my state acquire a positive relation to world history. And participation within the state synthesizes individual identities to produce universal ends. That is key to reconcile differences within the social structure, the establishment of force quote, good norms. New House 2K. Stronger state incorporates subdivision unity element of difference. When legislation framed to accord a shared conception of the good, and if difference is not suppressed by the incorporated, individuals are capable of embracing the ends of the state only if they experience the roles of citizens that are short of selfhood, and the state must be substantial unity, which individual relations with their federal citizens provide them universal project. The state embodies conceptual unity that tie and binds citizens, becomes through legislating reason, establishes principles, the universally binding and constantly endorsed, and it knows what it wills it universally and acts in the conscious ends. And recognition of and by the state are necessarily good. It enables the realization of freedom and rights and the negation of bad approaches to ethics. Williams 97. The state consists of the synthesis of universal ethical substance that subject individual freedom. The state must embody both freedom, which means whereby substance is actualized. The state transition ground morality, civil society, and ethical life, abstract identity, individual plurality are left behind. The bad is negated by the reciprocal recognition, and freedom becomes reflected in the positive relations to others. The authority is rooted in the fact that the state is emanated free will. The state must reconcile having the highest claim to right, and the individuals who are manipulated at the level of civil society to recognize ethical state as the common need. A concrete freedom requires personal individuality, gain recognition of the right for their own sake, and individuals have a right to be recognized by the state, and they owe the state a duty of recognition in return. It is a violation of the universal right to enter the state. And failure, the institutions live up to expected rules of irrelevant. The institution is a perfect form that is contained in the idea of an imperfect institution. Wood 90. The aim is not to tell the state how it ought to be, but how to provide us with a rational theodicy of modern social life. Every state fails to be wholly rational because it fails to be wholly actual, and the task is to heal the division of philosophy while reflection open to between our mites in the world by exhibiting the world's deep inner rationality. Although as much as the transitionary world of existence, thought is not ought to be in the inner essence of the fully rational spiritually satisfying. The outward form taken by thought can be reappropriated through our cognition, and ethics cannot be determined by empirical consequences they produce, because good ethics are created by working with them out collectively. Effective interactions are necessary to produce a good future. Determining how we come to a truth is a prerequisite to evaluating anything of the truth in the DA. McIntyre 72. Action is neither goalless nor the means of its decided end. Bringing about such an end of calculating means has a subordinate place only in the movement articulated. Can we understand human affairs only after the event? The understanding of beings is not predictive, and it's working out the failure of the present to satisfy the reading the future is made. The historical narratives are not data, and it's an ultimate kind of knowledge. The past in itself is a present, and in important ways lacking historical knowledge. Self-knowledge will be fairly limited, and the self-knowledge will never be yielded. No new 2NC frameworks excuse our prep because we can't engage if we don't know the terms of the debate. Isn't there a 9 to 5 advantage like Dex fairness? The decentralized philosophy which prevents us from educating ourselves on how to live moral lives is the portable skill in debate. Contention 2 is offense. International recognition is the starting point to develop self-identity to work out ethical norms through the state. Only recognizing the other enables reciprocal integration of multiple perspectives that becomes the basis of sovereignty and freedom. Butchwatcher 12. Sovereignty articulates freedom, and people are free not to objective narratives, but they know affirms their identity and circumstances characterizing existence. Self-conscious identity are intelligible only in the reference of other selves and the relation of reciprocal recognition. I perceive myself in relation to I acknowledge other recognition. I integrate my own self-understanding with the other perception of me. A community must recognize communities and other by means of which a culture requires insight to its own distinctiveness. Self-identity itself is a process integration of perception and perspectives of one nation that are completed in the recognition by the other. Institutional approaches are toward truth on self-determination and legitimacy forward by independence. Holland 12. Every state will fail if it lacks authority to legitimize institutional capacity. Institutional legitimacy comes from authority the population imparts upon its institutions. I'll mark the last one. Do you want me to just delete it, or do you want me to unhighlight it?
It's just the last part.
So it was the last card on Holland, and you can mark the first Holland 12 card after institutions. The population imparts upon its institutions. Sorry, you're taking prep?
Oh,
No, game.
Oh,
This isn't prep.
What is the question at hand?
Oh, I thought you
Now I can
said,
deliver it. What was the question?
I thought you were saying like you were starting our prep.
I don't think
Sorry.
anyone said it.
Okay, wait, maybe I'm just crazy. Sorry, maybe I'm just crazy. Sorry.
Maybe it was in my head and shit. That'd be cool. But anyway, sorry, what is actually going on?
I sent the mark. I was just asking how they wanted me to mark it. Are you ready?
How much fortune do I have?
Oh, Cooper, are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing cross. Why do predictions fail?
What do you mean
Just-
prediction?
okay.
Predictions of what?
It's
It's predictions about our future. Like
the
we
back-
cannot like.
Explain the McIntyre.
Okay, sure. Ethics cannot be predetermined by
Okay, you'll
empirics
just
because
read
we.
it. Like.
Well, I was
explain it.
just because my starting words are the same does not mean I'm explaining it.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Okay.
Explain.
So our idea is about how we determine good and bad forms of ethics, right? The way. The way we have to do that is when we are able to compare policies state by state. That is the off-Kaban, and that's also McIntyre describing the actual and the rational. When the state describes something as actual, it means that we are able to put it into policy and reflect the ideas of the people. That means it's also rational because we are able to explain it. However, when something's rational, it means it's also actual because something that can be explained will be implemented because people understand that its explanation is true.
Yo, back up.
Back up.
Explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader.
Okay, perfect. You asked me to explain it like a third grade. Okay, let's talk about the off-Kaban, okay? Hegel's theory on the off-Kaban is that,
Cool. Sorry, keep going.
I can't speak if you can't.
Sorry.
Okay, the off-Kaban is the idea that we can only derive truths when we put things in contention with another. So the question I always ask in class is how do we know if things are good and bad, right? We know something is bad because we compare it with something that is better. So we can say that, oh, this like mac and cheese is better because I've tasted the other one and determined that one is better than the other. Hegel's ideal is that we need institutional governments like the state to be able to embody those because it embodies the ideas of policy. That's why our second contention on offense is that we need to have a recognition of Somaliland because their voices are never heard by other institutional states, and we can never determine what's good or bad in Somaliland or elsewhere if their voices are not being activated by the state and institution.
Cool.
Okay, I'll take that question. Can you explain your C4 to me?
Our C4 is just like, so when you affirm, it prevents diplomacy in a couple ways. First, it raises tensions. Second,
Tensions with who?
just like in general, like tensions in the region.
Can you name me
Like Somalia.
so just Somalia?
No, Somalia is an example. of
So
what's
what other tensions are you describing?
what Somalia gets angry and then they do things like cutting off
So-
diplomatic ties to other people, which decreases.
So, okay, you're being very vague here. What countries because I don't want you guys to come up in like the
Somalia-
second NR and go like, oh,
Somalia-
you're just like,
Somalia hurts tensions with the AU broadly,
okay.
and then the AU splits along the lines.
So why do
Somalia
they
and
hurt
Somalia.
tensions with Somalia, the AU?
Well, because they have an incentive to like, well, I did up there. Somalia has an incentive to like basically show people that they're very angry, which is why they do.
Wait,
things
why
like
did they have an
don't
incentive to
engage in
show
diplomacy.
people they're like grr or angry?
So people don't do stuff like this.
Okay, and is it that on like a state v state level?
What?
Like,
Yeah,
what
it's
is that? What is
The
Somalia?
diplomacy argument is about state v state diplomacy, like in the AU, but also outside of it.
Why is criticism or clash bad?
What do you mean, why is criticism?
Like, why is like Somalia being upset bad?
Because it causes extinction since it prevents the AU from being.
Can you explain to me the link chain of extinction?
The AU, oh, okay.
Okey-dokey, taking proper.
We'll send the doc.
Prep.
Oh, no, we're talking.
See, I'm telling you, I hear it in the back.
Maybe it's because I speak in riddles.
Well, every time I finish
Okay,
speech,
that's
I know
fine, I
Dave's
got it.
always going, "Prep,"
Yeah.
so I hear it.
Oh, maybe
Alright.
that's what, maybe you used that.
Wait, do we need to send in docs too?
Yes, please.
Can
Okay, wait.
it'd be really cool. if we
Yeah.
could.
You send the, wait, I'll send the full text, you send the doc, we do that.
Wait. You can just send both, because come. Wait, what do you mean?
I
Alright,
don't know.
just
Let's get the prep going, guys.
Wait, Chris, what do you wanna do?
like.
You send the full text as the
Oh,
body.
I'm
okay.
sending
and
the
you
full
just-
text.
Oh,
Sure.
okay, one or the
Wait,
other.
okay.
Alright, the
Here.
full text is sent, 2% the doc.
Okay, sure. The order might not be the same,
Get a new sheet out.
or get like 2 new sheets out.
Yeah,
Two, it's two off,
it's gonna.
Well, it's gonna be
it's gonna-
another off if we have time.
so.
One off,
I
another
don't
off. if we
have
have
enough paper. I'm
Wait,
just gonna
give me
put-
one.
Wait, what is Macintosh?
time. McIntyre is their card.
Wait, I'm not ready, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I still haven't sent the word
So
out.
this is
I'm
still.
sorry, I'm so sorry. It was two offs, then K proper, and then Ks.
I
Well,
think
it's-
it's
yeah,
one
it's
off,
one
case
off.
proper and going back to the second off if they have time.
Oh, excellent.
Is that right?
Yep, okay, I think I.
Wait, this is the like calling saints. Okay, whatever.
Oh, wait, do you want me to make it in Calibre? I'm sorry.
Wait, send the doc, the full text comes in, send the actual doc in Calibre.
I already sent it.
Anyway,
I'll send it again in.
it's fine.
It's fine.
Wait, so
You can just change it in Word once you're.
one off,
One off, you,
bagel,
sure, and then another off, yeah.
Cool.
Alright.
Nice.
Is everyone ready?
no,
Everyone
I don't have the.
Whatever you want, your partner has it.
I'm downloading it. I don't have it.
Give me a second to change this.
Sorry. Alright. Oh. Everyone's ready. Time starts. All new within 2 and 2 that only rich responding rather than second constructed and their ones are from policy. The other is at 9 to 5 split on site call. The 180's model debate is structured by settler colonialism. Absent affirming even with a repressive desire, every move settlers take is overdetermined by a genocide of the desire to erase indigeneity. Not the rule of the is to vote for the best methodology that actively resists settler colonialism. Core 15. For us settlers to engage with indigenous unsettled identity to recreate ourselves in ethical ways, we remap settler subjectivity through a relational ontology founded on hypersensitive unconsciousness. The unconscious is the state of repression. Settlers are bound by investments in another that prevents realization, manifests itself in enjoyment of substitute history and indigenous people deny and subsume land theft, causes extermination, the relative spread of disease responsible for deaths of 90% of the population. Ideal theory abstracts away from material violence of settler colonialism and is useless. Nicholas 13. Ideal theory has been reluctant to engage in historical narratives, instead argue the principle that a just society can be generated by acting away legitimized subordination, relieving the burden of proof from colonial states. Rhetorical structure shapes discourse spaces that outcomes appear logical. The logic of deliberation is assimilation that facilitates indigenous erasure. Grade 11. In the pursuit of equal rights cited along inclusion, framed through inclusion into the nation state, such that discourses underwrite settler colonialism assimilation as a representation for genocide, Indian sovereignty disappears. The alternative is refusal. This is a generative practice towards the decolonial futures that must be crushed to make way for the aft genocidal horizon. King 17. The generative refusal on decolonial making Western thought turn to making the settler colonial meta narrative the object of these questions, assumptions, refusal, reversity, erasure, and acted which uses genocide to annihilate native epistemologies. On no new framing, our framing is a direct response to their argument. On our interpretation that the judge ought to evaluate the app as a research project. 1. Performance DA. You're an educator responsible for judging. I respond to Cooper. You're an educator responsible for judging the behavior and scholarly direction of the app. Mean that you should drop them if we win a link. Secondly, independently voting negative presumption. Via is illusory. The app is wait. But yeah, via resolution, the app is playing our arcs below to how we view policies and debate. Top level framing issue on case. 1. Don't let them kick reps. Every morally repugnant blip is a link. Otherwise, encourage students to knowingly live out a race of momentum for strategic gain. Drop them even if their method solves. Secondly, drop the debater on norm setting for any framework argument that claims that K doesn't matter. Dying genocide slash racism makes the debate space unsafe and encourages development of racist subjectivity. That outweighs A, accessibility, maintaining a safe environment, critics at the impact. B, if this proves their theory thesis, even if you can't pinpoint where it fell apart. 3. We get backup responses to spikes. Anything else incentivizes hiding living arguments to avoid clash, which checks engagement. 4. Disproves our ideology. We determine if an ethical code is good. If ethical code is good by testing it against what we know. I erase them bad and generous is bad. On their response top on their K proper. 1. Even if goals reverse through action, only predictions explain how to align these goals. Secondly, our claims are not reliant on history, and even if history does not always repeat itself, it often does. 3. Predictions work. Their epic criticizes totality structures with loose on specificity to our link. Difference 21. Easy to infer that foreign policy produced nothing but bad ideas. The world is more complex. Does not mean that there haven't been any good ideas of small bore initiatives. None new program preventing proliferation. Obama nuclear safety summits, PEPFAR saving 18 million lives. On Kate, the international laws and myths for Hegel that justifies war than disproves the app. 20. Recognition depends on arbitrary will. I laws of fantasy, ceaseless terminal of interest, demand binding contracts. But states are not persons. A state is independent of other states. State do not even have the right to exist. Demised by external aggression. Justification is absence of I law. Secondly, epistemology is secondary to the plan's harm reduction. Anything less causes endless debate at the cause of material improvements on the day-to-day. Driver 0. Epistemological debate smacks of elitism and displays of contempt for those in struggle. What does effort say to the oppressed? Does it speak to those who comprise policy to support problem-solving theory? Is bad obligates any hope of solving. The United States in one sense can debate towards a pit of epistemology be helpful, in other than fool's abstract debate. 3. We deliberated for centuries and a world is far from perfect. We struggle with cap and racist institutions. They have a high burden of proof. 4. This round is deliberation. We are repressing the ethical community, deliberating about arguments. We win any of our arguments in the context of the round. You have deliberated and came to a conclusion. 5. Deliberation disproves the app. I deliberated with tons of people and they all thought that this argument was stupid. 6. Special bodily security prevent us from acting upon moral theories. This is in a constant state of crisis that inhibits the ideal moral conditions with other theories presuppose. It's hard to decide what's universalizable when you're dead. 7. Regress takes out the app. Can't determine if it's true. 8. Deliberation fails. People opt out too much. 9. No more why the A use the ethical community. 10. Ethical community can't be inclusive. Resource barriers prevent communication in remote populations. 11. It's based on ideal theory. Hybrid and improvement. It doesn't apply to reality. It ignores structural differences between populations, communities, tensions, etc. 12. I flipped the coin and it was heads and me and Cooper deliberated. Using constructivism, I determined that you should negate. 13. The EU feels that ethical community is inherently non-inclusive and only includes countries from Africa. 14. Saying that app actually sells something is cruel optimism as a prevents actual improvement. 15. By tying in entities the ability to produce input bias input creates a mindset of social hierarchy and embracing their case literally sets a precedent that recognition is status key to input. Framing doesn't make sense. It's not a proper question to what is ethical or not, because if we know that death is bad and racism is bad and those impacts are still often independent links to the race of ours, the idea that we need deliberation to determine racism is good or not is not violent. Cut after 16. Sure. Cooper, stop. Oh. Do we still need to do the whole doc thing?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
you could also do Calibri because when I transferred it, messed up your format.
My bad. Yeah, I can.
The top one.
The 16. Wait, okay, I think this is it. No, yeah, we didn't get to the, you don't need the other sheet, we didn't get to the next one. Alright, it's been sent.
When you guys get it.
We'll take it. We'll take. I guess.
Let me refresh.
We didn't get it down, but. Starts now. Wait, can we take butts?
Yeah.
What's the role of the ballot?
The role of the ballot is to vote for the best methodology that actively resists settler colonialism.
Okay, okay.
I don't have, I guess,
Are there any cards?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's fine.
I have 220 use, is that right?
I have 41 seconds.
Yeah, so what Pete said,
Okay,
he said 220.
so what's the
Well-
order?
Set call.
Yeah, it's gonna go start on Hegel
Hegel,
and then go to set call. So Hegel, start with the McIntyre stuff.
okay.
Wait, we can all agree we don't need your substance sheet, right?
You'll need the
we're gonna
substance
use it in the
sheet.
background.
You'll need-
Oh, then I have a doc.
You might need the substance sheet.
Okay, then I'll send my doc. A2, Chris and. I don't know how much I'll get to on the substance page. I may just analytic it.
Okay, that's fine. So McIntyre case. Okay,
We're gonna take a little bit of that. 28 left.
Okay. Did everyone get the doc and the body?
No.
Okay. I don't really know how much. to get to. You got it? Cool. Is anyone not ready? Great, the order is just gonna go, yeah. McIntyre, Hegel, set call, Case. Yeah, there it is.
McIntyre, Hegel.
McIntyre makes it that call substance.
Okay, sure.
Anyone not ready? Great. So I'm just gonna start on my first word. Start on McIntyre. They just assert to you that predictions work. The only way we were even able to get those predictions in the first place is through conflict. We had to deliberate what is better between two warring sides actually conflicting with each other to figure out what we should even be predicting. But also, predictions can be wrong. The only way to actually check back against predictions is to have the conflict in the first place, to deliberate the new truth. So that's the only way to reassert against predictions are true. Remember, if something is actual, it is rational. If we are able to carry out an action by the state, it can then be rationalized. And if an action is rationalized by the state, it is able to successfully be carried out because the state looks together the individual people in support. But then let's go to Hegel first. On the top on international law. They don't actually explain why international law has ever worked to solve wars. We had international law in the past and we still had wars. There's no reason why international law is critical or why Hegel is necessary. So we would argue that even if Hegel doesn't underline with international law, by being able to have conflict between states, that's the only way that we determine whether something, a policy, is a good or a bad policy. So we need to actually have conflict to have good or bad policies. But then let's go on to the epistemology second to the plan's harm reduction. No, we tell you epistemology comes sequentially before harm reduction because epistemology controls the way that we are even able to reduce that harm. But we would also say that the plan itself is reducing harm because we'll read offense on their case. But then they said that group all the deliberation responses. It's not just about deliberation, it's also about conflict. It's not just we're having conversations that we're actually disagreeing. We have to actually have the disagreement. Then they just tell you that they're also on the responses about the ethical community. They don't give a warrant why the AU isn't an ethical community. We would also feel that the AU is an ethical community because insofar as they're trying to do the best to help their people, that means that they can still work under Hegel's framework. Then they tell you that him and Cougar agreed that we should vote neg. This isn't, oh, there's not a warrant here because we're not involved in this conflict. You should buy our version of conflict better because we're including more conflict that always on scope for implementing to Hegel. On the regress, it's not warranted. On deliberation fails, it's still not warranted. It's also a cross with stack call will respond there on the flip coin thing. On the app does something as a cruel optimism. No, we tell you that the app actually does do something because when we recognize Somaliland's policies are interrogated, they're able to assert themselves as an independent nation with Somalia, which means they're able to protect themselves. And they tell you that the framing doesn't make sense. No, because we don't necessarily, like, we know that death and bad and racism is bad because we've had conflict and had time to assert policies that help reinforce those beliefs. The whole reason that we able to do, it's not necessarily just about what is good and bad, it's about what policies we can do that make things good and bad. And Hegel is the fact that we can have conflict as a state to figure out what the state can do to best carry out, to best support the interests of the people. Yes, we can have these existing truths of what is good and bad, but the ethical question is the prior question to figure out any of their methodology, because if we're not able to actually interrogate what is good and bad and actually have state recognition, there's no way we solve for any of their impacts. But then go to SAC call. On the ideal theory, first on ideal theory, they don't actually implicate why it's specifically related to Hegel and other links really specific. The only link that they try to give you is that indigenous deliberation leads to assimilationism. No, Hegel sequentially comes before this because the reason that indigenous people weren't actually on a fair playing field is because they were not recognized as a state. We were instead recognized as independent bodies. If you buy our model of state recognition, we are able to have the equal playing field of conflict. That means Hegel is a prerequisite to settler colonialism. When you endorse our methodology of recognition, we're able to actually solve for the issues. And then they tell you that ideal theory exists from the material violence. No, it's not just ideal theory. Our response is related to material violence. They tell you that the world hasn't gotten better at all. But remember, the world has most definitely gotten better. Policies are significantly better now. You can literally look to America's political growth over and like the default, fixing policies that they've had, the increase of women's rights and the increase of rights for people of color. We would say this is through deliberation because of state recognition, the way that states are able to interact with each other, and the state is able to interact with the people to then have conflict and have deliberation and determine what's a good policy. Then on the no new framing, whatever. And then on our interpretation that the judge ought to evaluate the app as a research project, we would say that you should evaluate the app through our framework of an ethical of who has the best ethical methodology, because you have to evaluate ethical methodologies before you can actually evaluate impacts, because otherwise there's no way to actually evaluate their impact. And if you feel bad ethical methodology, you can still reproduce negative impacts, because that's why settler colonialism will always continue to be reproduced. But you also tell you prioritize our state recognition first, because we interact with all forms of repression instead of just isolating settler colonialism on the performance deity, behavior and scholarly production. No, we would tell you that we're not linking insofar as we sequentially come before, and we've never made an argument about trying to justify colonization. The argument is instead that everyone should be getting state recognition and that indigenous governments should be recognized as states, which is actually pro-indigenous. And then on the presumption where there's offense in the round, there's no reason that you would presume that we've never claimed that the key doesn't matter. There's no drop the debater. On the back of responses to bites, we also give responses to bites. We're not kicking the reps, but then on the role of the ballot, remember the role of the ballot is the debater with the best ethical methodology. That's a prerequisite to solving any issue of settler colonialism because it holistically analyzes oppression on a larger scale and sequentially comes before.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, wait.
sure.
Oh wait, yeah, it's.
Can we go across?
Okay, yeah, we can do open cross. First, you got cross. I got a prep.
Any question going on?
No, you can do
All right,
that, bro.
let's start.
Very sure. I'll take first question. Can you explain your like prereq?
Our prereq?
Yeah, it's the question that the only reason that we can understand settler colonialism and understand these theories of what is good and bad is because we have had conflicts in contention with colonialism, right? The only reason we can understand that indigenous groups were
Yeah.
oppressed is because there was violence against it.
There's two separate prereqs. The first is the one Katie explained, that through deliberation and conflict and like resurgence, we were able to determine that these forms of colonialism is bad because we worldwide accepted these forms as good, but the only reason we were able to accept them as bad through conflict. The second is that sequentially, through state recognition, we solved for settler colonialism. All of your evidence is because, and like the idea that assimilation is bad for indigenous people is
How does
because
state
assimilation.
State
If
recognition
we,
allows
it's
the
about state
people.
recognition, like if you endorse our methodology of state recognition, then when we recognize indigenous groups as states and governments, it puts them on an even playing field for negotiation. The reason that they have to like suffer from assimilation, whatever, is because they were not recognized as a state. Only the larger state was recognized and not indigenous people.
It's also important, well, I'll first note that it's important that we both do deliberation and conflict. That's why all of these like one-off responses are not relevant, because in order for you to have conflict, you can't just think to yourselves and have internal deliberation. It
Okay.
requires a deliberation
Can I get
of
a
the
follow-up?
state.
Can we
No,
take a
I
question?
Sure.
Let's talk about the role of the ballot. Can you tell me your role of the ballot again?
Like. Oh, we just read it to you, man.
No, I
The
know,
role
but-
about best methodology to actively resist settler colonialism.
How do we resist settler colonialism and what that, like, how do we define that?
Like, what do you mean?
How do we define resisting settler colonialism?
We would.
How do we know what's a good form of, like, defying settler colonialism and a bad form of settler?
Wait, what do you mean?
How do we know what's a good form of resistance and a bad form of resistance?
Like, wait. What?
How do we know what's a good form of resistance versus a bad form of resistance?
Resisting settler colonialism is good insofar as it resists settler colonialism.
How do we know that?
What?
How do we know what is good and bad?
We made an ontological claim. Our argument
Wait,
is
you
deductive.
can make an ontological claim. I'm asking how you
No,
arrived to that.
our
conclusion.
argument is about the structure of the world. We do not need to deliberate to say that indigenous people are oppressed. This is the way the world is structured. White
No,
people
wait.
are-
This is the way the world is structured.
don't
Is
get deliberate.
arguments that people use to justify a multitude of different isms. We would say that you need to analyze what is good. We're not gonna make IDIs, but like the idea is that we only know what is good and bad when we
Yes,
put things
but
in contention with one another,
No.
figure out what's good, what's bad, and build growth off of
The
that.
idea that we need to deliberate and talk about whether things are good or
Conflict.
bad, to
It's
decide whether
deliberation.
racism is
Right,
bad, or to
conflict.
decide whether death is bad, is something that is racist. The
Sure,
idea that these
conflict.
things are not
It's not
inherent is something that's
racist.
problematic. These are things that are like moral truth.
Wait, okay,
and
I have a
moral
question. I have a
truth
question.
The
Can I have,
point
can I
is that
this is
not
like
just
an
moral,
entire
also
argument.
in the context of the state, what policies.
Wait,
can
can I
we
take a
best
question?
match?
I mean,
Sure,
this
in
is
the
like
next 5
essentially.
seconds.
Okay, is it possible to justify things like settler colonialism or racism through deliberation?
No,
No,
because you
not
can't
deliberation.
conflict.
No,
build
wait, that's the
something
actual
in
rational
conflict.
thing that we explain. We'll explain it again in summary.
Sure. Alright,
Okay.
we don't need 3 minutes of proper time.
Okay. Set call. Set call case. Table.
No new parts.
No new cards.
Okay. Wait, so. Set call, 1NC.
Okay.
That's right.
Everyone good? Time starts. Settler colonialism is a structure that embeds indigenous classes to the genocidal desire of natives. The logic of deliberation is racist. The idea that indigenous people need to deliberate and synthesize ideas with white colonists is the logic behind boarding schools that assimilate natives. All that solves resistance, solves with settler logics that get normalized within the settler psyche and naturalized. Dispossesses violence. Settler colonialism is reliant on the everyday iteration of settlers' common sense. Underview, one, performance data, you're educated and responsible for judging their behavior and scholarly prediction of the ask. That means you drop them if we win a link, even if they win. Their method of deliberation is better, just not matter. We say that if you're racist, you lose the round. It's a reason to reject them on face. Otherwise, people read racist one-line blips for a strategic advantage. Second, vote on our presumption fiat is illusionary. The app does nothing. Our art spelled how we view polities in debate. They say that there's office, it doesn't matter. We say that post fiat office does not matter because fiat is illusionary. This is a conceited argument. You should vote here super comfortably. Third, disputes ideology. We determine if an ethical code is good by testing it against what we know. This is a conceited argument. Even we test that we know that racism is bad. We know that genocide is bad. We don't need to deliberate about those things. These are moral truths that we test our ethical theories against by talking about them. Top shelf. All their responses. Top shelf. All their responses are weighing their method of deliberation, but that fails insofar as their argument is purely post-fiat insubstantial, but we are critiquing the way that they read their post-fiat argument, saying that it's racist, which is they have not interacted with our interview that says these reps are a reason to drop them even if when their method is better. They say the reason why indigenous people weren't recognized is because they weren't giving it an even playing field. Even if deliberation is good in theory, its implementation fails because of the ontology, which is white settlers are always structured who push out indigenous people, which it means it always fails. They say only deliberation has led to good policies. No, every improvement was not just from talking, it was things like civil wars for protest talking. It's the logic that lets people delay doing these mediations and talks so we can't solve these indigenous struggles. They say state recognition interacts with all forms of prejudice fails since they are recognizing all indigenous people with just one state. Again, their argument is post-fiat. Ontology structures everything in the round. It means all deliberation will inherently fail. It means it's try or die. All deliberation fails because everybody is ontologically against like indigenous people. Case. Somalia has de-escalated amid new president, but absolute recognition forces Somalia to invade to stop Somalia's independence. They view it as an action that draws in other powers and goes nuclear with the end arms and proxy wars with communication, exchanging radiation, avoiding, sending, destroying food. This argument is cold, conceit, meaning you have deliberate in this round and come to the conclusion on the pre-fiat level. You cannot evaluate deliberation outside the context of the round. This round is deliberation. We are representing the ethical community. We have come to the conclusion that we solve extinction with something was ethical or not as a prerequisite. We know that it's bad and racism is that any theory that can come to another conclusion is wrong and should be rejected on base. We evaluate theories by testing them against what we know the idea. We need to deliberate something that is racist, which the case says, which is another link to the case. And threats to body security prevents us from acting upon other moral theories. It's hard to decide what's ethical when you're dead. On Hegel, first they conceded that international laws and myth per Hegel himself because states are not the same thing as people. This is the biggest issue. The idea that states can replace people is actively violent because it means that if a state oppresses certain people and is not fully democratic, only those in power can be included in discussion. It's a turn to their contention even if they win the framing. Second, it fails. People will inevitably opt out of discussion, which is why deliberation will never work. Concede their argument, and we'll go for the Jarvis evidence. They have conceded that even if deliberation is a good thing for coming to a conclusion, it's not practical for solving solutions in the world. So we're constantly deliberating about whether actions are good or bad. We can never actually take an action, and it's terminally not unique. Like is far too weak. I think one country, the ethical community doesn't do anything insofar as so many people are already excluded, and ethical communities can't be exclusive. There are resource barriers that prevent communication. Their arguments are all far too ideal.
Okay, cool. Give me like 5 seconds of prep. I gotta pull. Okay, cool. 26 seconds left. The order is going to be Hegel, set call, neg. Or actually, Hegel, neg, set call, because all group their neg and R. Okay. Actually, it's gonna answer, sorry. Answering the pre-fiat stuff that they said at the top of set call, Hegel, neg case, like neg substance, set call. I'll be clear on the signposting, I promise. Okay. Anyone not ready? Well, time is the first. First of all, fiat illusionary. They said the fiat is illusionary. I always won their case in deliberation. We said it was not deliberation. It's all about conflict. Which means that they didn't respond to it. It means that it's automatically a prerequisite because in order for us to discuss what's good and bad, you need to have conflict and deliberation. That's why any of their claims don't matter because in order for us to determine settler colonialism, we even have a garner understanding about how who's oppressed and not. We have to have forms of ethical life and understanding, which is the only way you need to do Hegel. But also, don't buy the argument that there was no conflict, so there's no resolution. Also, they said fiat is illusionary, so their extinction claims don't matter. That means you automatically drop them on their substance case. But let's go to Hegel. First, our idea on Hegel is very simple. It says that when we are able to have institutional structures, they are literally the people, because our argument explains that people are literally what make up the state. It's not that some people overpower others. No, it's that McIntyre does a very good understanding about what something is actual. It means it's actually explainable, which is why it's actually rational, which is why these policies enact. And it's only when we see them in contention and clash with one another that we're able to determine what's good and bad. Like, let's think about World War II. The only reason that we could figure out why fascism was bad was because we were able to put it in fights with other forms of policy, which is why we discovered that other forms like democracy is better. Then go to the role of the ballot. Your role of the ballot is to ethics cannot be determined by empirics and consequences they produce, because good results are produced by working out effectively. Effects of interaction are necessary to produce a good future. Only determining how we come to truth is a prerequisite to evaluating the truth of DA. And we tell you that the role of the ballot is to vote for the team who best understands the epistemological undertakings, because the only reason we are able to understand settlement colloquium and cases because we are able to understand why we make these decisions. It's not that it's a past requisite, it is a prerequisite. But then go to their responses. First, they say that laws emit. First, they don't even explain why international law matters. They don't even say that why it matters. we need to have conflict. We are arguing that we need to have conflict on the international scale, which is why you need to recognize Somaliland in order to do so. And yeah, and then go to set call. The role of the ballot is the best. They always tell you that state feels. Wait, I'm not gonna read that. Okay, go to set call first. It is second under Hegel, because in order for us to understand how we make good rejections of settler colonialism, that means that you automatically have to do Hegel to determine what's good or bad. Also, they've conceded that the only reason why indigenous people are always oppressed because they're not on the same international level, which is why you need to recognize that what our advocacy for is recognizing international levels of like indigenous. And it says it doesn't work in reality, but they consider our example of the United States that literally says that when we are able to deliberate on things, we're able to improve the policies of the United States. It's really, really clear for the negation, because we can only improve things when we're able to put them in contention and determine what's good and bad. That's why when we put things in fights, someone always wins and that person's always right because they won the fight. It's try or die for Hegel. But then go to the 1NC. Group all their responses. All they've said is that we've deliberated, that we won. No, our argument is that deliberation is not the only factor in determining what is good and bad. The only way you can determine what is good and bad is deliberation and conflict. That's why all of their claims about, oh, we decided that this round was over and that we won because we deliberated is non-factual, because the only way you can do this is when we have contention between states, and they are not a state. Neither are they a representation of two unequal ideas. It's ethnological methodology and a try or die for Hegel.
Alright.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Let's go to. Actually. Yeah, let's go to just the prereq. Are we able to compare, are we able to compare delivering moral theories with things we already know is objectively true?
No, the only reason we know they're objectively true is because
I'm not
they come in
asking-
conflict.
okay,
Wait, I'm explaining that because it's a prerequisite, which is kind of proving our argument. Yeah.
Like the entire actual rational thing that we've explained is that if a policy can actually be kept, it has rationalization behind it, and if a policy has rationalization behind it, it can't actually be passed. That rationalization can come from things that we already know to be morally true, but to determine if the policy is functional, you have to actually interrogate it through conflict. Conflict isn't just talking, it's literally like war and protest, but can we take a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Okay, let's talk about settler colonialism. How do we know settler colonialism is bad?
I'd say that because you just know it as a moral theory that.
Wait, you just know,
How do we
wait, how
get
do
to
we
that?
form moral theories?
well, I think a lot of people in like the 1600s would say settler colonialism is good, so how did their worldview shift?
Well, I'd say that there was probably like wars like the Civil War.
Wars.
So wars, so
Like-
the
So
conflict we're
state v
talking
state
about.
conflict, coming to a
Like,
resolution that
okay.
determines that
So
something is
state
good.
v state conflict.
Again, this logic that we have some claims to deliberation means that
It's not
deliberation
about
is-
It's not
deliberation,
really,
it's
it's not
conflict.
deliberation,
Okay, sure.
it's conflict.
I'm sorry for semantically not saying word for word what you guys mean, but the idea that we
Well,
need
because they're two
deliberation.
different things.
Okay. The idea that we need deliberation and conflict, like the idea that we use deliberation and conflict to prove one example, therefore we need it to prove like every single other thing is false because
It is an underlying analysis of how we make assumptions and how we come to conclusions about every single thing. That is why it's a prerequisite to settler colonialism and to thinking about, oh, these things are objectively good. No, they weren't objectively good in the 1600s. We still had like colonies from like the Europe, right? Like
Yeah.
they only like we only subtract ourselves from that when we are able to come in conflict with something, and that
Even-
requires international interaction.
Even if a moral is determined to be good or bad, the way that that spreads through human society is through conflict. Or like, even if there were people in the 1600s who said, yeah, settler colonialism is bad, that didn't become a widespread social ideology until conflict happened.
Okay.
You can take a question.
Okay. Sure. Let's go to. Sure, wait, let's go to like Hegel. If you concede that fiat is illusory, where is your offense? Like you
Our
have free
offense
fiat
comes
offense,
framing.
Our offense first comes from framing, but second, it's a
but you
response to.
only weigh against. it,
It's
right?
also second, yes, we did. It's a response to your offense because it says that in order, it's a prerequisite to your
better
offense
solve.
because in order for us to understand your offense, we have to come in
Yeah,
conflict, which
and
is
to
why we
better
need to-
solve for the like
yeah.
pre-fiat modes of the question you talk about, you have to do Hegel first, but that's.
Okay. We have 3 minutes. Time starts now.
Chris, how many cut those?
Oh,
Or.
that's short. Close now.
For you.
We'll start on substance, our case, like the substance case, weighing, and then their size.
One and C, Hegel. Cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, it's that call case.
It's gonna be one sentence on
Set call,
Sorry, is
one
that
and
ready?
C.
One and C, one
Hegel.
AC.
Alright. Time starts. We're kicking psychology condo and didn't ask. If you are confused, vote on substance. It is the cleanest place to vote, and they have conceded that death is a prereq to deliberation. And by affirming, you cause near eminent extinction. No, I know where you're confused. There's a conceded argument you can vote on right here. Somaliland is de-escalated amid, but act forces Somaliland to invade to stop since they view independence as an existential threat. Draw down on the powers and goes nuclear through miscalc, extinction through radiation causing famine. The argument is cold conceding, meaning we have deliberated in this round and come to a conclusion on the pre-fiat level. We as debaters are representing the ethical community, deliberating about arguments by engaging with you. We are by engaging with you, we are engaging in conflict. And even if we lose that it's pre-fiat, their arguments are solely post-fiat, so we still beat it on a post-fiat plane. Their weighing is wrong. Resolving what is ethical or not is not a prereq because we know that death is bad and racism is bad, and any theory that can come to another conclusion is wrong and should be rejected on face. We evaluate theories by testing them against things we know. In their scenario, Russia deliberated in the UN and decides that racism is a good thing and that we should be racist. Our argument is that countries should not be the ones deciding whether racism is bad or if death is bad. Even if these morals were not treated as inherently true at one point, you know that they're true now, which means that we've already deliberated and decided that death is bad, so you should vote on any argument that prevents death. They say reject substance because fiat is illusionary, but they have considered our discourse is independently good since we are forwarding a free fiat model onto how to prevent extinction, which is conceded. Finally, the prerequisites conceded. It is hard to deliberate with their dead. Go to their case. They just straight up did not frontline. They're going to do some persuasive final weighing, but they conceded three responses. Firstly, they dropped that even if deliberation is ideally good for coming to a conclusion, it is not practical since we're constantly deliberating about whether actions are good or bad. We can never actually take action. Sign your ballot here. Secondly, their own theory states that states are not the same as people because states are not a perfect representation of the people, proven by authoritarian countries like Russia. This is a term to their contention that even if they win their method, even if people make up the state, it is conceded that states are not always perfect democracy, which is why the affirmation does not solve. Thirdly, they consider our ontology claim that deliberation always fails because states are inherently structured to be violent towards indigenous people. Look, there's too much conceded on Hegel proper. There's some persuasive weighing against it, but you should reject it. You know for a fact our case is conceded and the weighing is conceded for that. So if you're confused, just vote there.
Okay, we. 30 seconds, or 26. Fine, sorry.
Okay. Oh, it's gonna start on their one-line set call, okay? Then it's gonna go on Hegel and their substance. Yes, actually, it might go set call substance Hegel. Yeah, okay, I'll signpost really well. Time's gonna start on my first word. Is anyone not ready? After summary, we both conceded that fiat is illusory. Don't let them change their tune now. That's not allowed in public forum. If fiat is illusory, none of their post-fiat impacts matter. We give you the pre-fiat implication that you should row through the role of the battle of debate with the best ethical methodology. That impacts this space because we have real conversations about ethical methodology to determine good ethics in real life. Them kicking set call is really, really bad on the pre-fiat because they're severing from their reps, which they themselves told you is really, really bad, but also because they objectify the indigenous experience. It's just a tool to use for many speeches in the round, and then they kick it in first final. That is a pre-fiat reason to drop it because that's a bad ethical methodology to use people of color as something just to pretend to be, and then vote on Hegel. Remember, I said our pre-fiat offense, which is all we're going for, is that when we're able to have state recognition and have conversations about ethical methodology, that's the only way to produce truth through intersubjective recognition of one another to incorporate and correct error. Alternative frameworks are incoherent because they can't account for the possibility of the wrongness, and asocial approaches can't be worthwhile because they refuse the process by which truth becomes meaningful. McIntyre describes the actual and rational theory, which I'll explain here. Remember, it's our ethical methodology that if we are able to pass a policy and it succeeds, that means it is a rational policy. And if we're able to have a rational idea, that means we'll always be able to pass that policy and make it able to succeed. The two justify each other. This has been conceded the entire round, and it is a response to all their lines. We didn't concede their responses, but I'll line by line them here. First, they tell you that they tell you that deliberation is not practical. We're not talking about deliberation. We're talking about conflict. We're talking about war. We're talking about protest. They use the word deliberation. They say it's just semantics. No, it's intentional because we're not just talking about talking. We're talking about fighting. And we would also tell you they conceded that the USA proves because the United States was able to have conflict and have protest, and now we have better policies and more people in the United States have shared morals. But then they tell you that it justifies bad morals and that it justifies racism and sexism. No, because we've been able to prove it through conflict that like the way that we're able to spread that moral, even if yes, we're not saying there's no world where racism and sexism are justifiable because of the actual and rational. Those are irrational things, which means policies will always be able to solve them through deliberation. They'll never actually be justified. Then they say that it fails. No, but we've talked about conflict, but then on their post-fiat implications, they tell you that death comes first and that it's through delusion. Katie told me that there was no deliberation because we didn't respond, so there was no conflict. But then second, it's all post-fiat. Fiat's illusory. You vote on the pre-fiat ethical implications of Hegel and on them severing the reps and objectifying indigenous people. Affirm.
Blair,
What says so?
it is substance. It's literally framing that off.
Well, you went for it as yeah, like model.
That's what you made us vote for this pre-fiat.
Yeah, they're like,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I love you.